Good morning. So, today our guest has over 20 years of experience and has founded three different companies. Yes, you heard that right. Three different companies, which involves sectors from architecture to the licensing industry. The common core in her founding businesses was to find consensus among different stakeholders, whether it was individuals, whether it was businesses, or whether it was international governments. So, let's hear from the ambitious and amazing woman herself, Angela, on 10 Minutes of Hiring Wisdom. Hi, Angela. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I appreciate it.
Of course, I mean, words don't do justice regarding the work that you've done. People usually stop at founding one business. You decided to take two further steps and decided to own three different companies. What gave you the motivation that you wanted to start your own business? And why did you decide to pursue three different companies?
So I think ultimately there's a lot of discussion about whether people are born an entrepreneur or they made an entrepreneur. I think it's honestly a bit of both, but definitely in my soul, I'm an entrepreneur. And I love to solve problems. And the best way to solve a problem is to start a company that will enable you to be paid. So you can support a lot of other people at the same time as doing something that's really important. Our company that we are building right now is called This Way Global. We match people to jobs. And really, more importantly, we focus on making sure that the experience for the job seeker and the experience for the recruiter and company are both very positive. And so our tagline for This Way Global is that we provide matching that matters. And what we mean by that is we care very deeply about the companies. We care very deeply about the job seeker. And we put every bit of resource and energy and thought into making that experience best. And there's no bigger demand for something like what we do than now post-pandemic as we're trying to come out of this last very rough year.
That's very true, especially because I think at first people preferred people to be there in person, but I think a lot of people have decided that, okay, things might not go back to normal for quite a while, so let's just adopt the hybrid model. And I think companies that are doing that right now are doing well. So, I mean, that's definitely a very good initiative, especially on your part, because you're definitely making the process much more seamless, much more simpler for everyone around you. So thank you for doing something like that specifically.
Well, I think it forced the market to become digital.
I think so.
We were doing it a little bit, but now it's really caused us to probably accelerate that process 5 to 10 years forward faster.
Yeah, I agree. And do you think, how has the experience been for you and your company specifically post-pandemic? We're still in the pandemic, of course, but with the hiring and everything, how has the experience been? With working with clients and everything, how have things been for you?
So a couple of key differences. Before we were in an office all together, and I was very reluctant to have 100% remote workforce. And I would, my hand also got forced during all of this. And so we implemented some strategies around how to continue to run a company effectively and also support our team. And now I'm quite happy to say we're 100% remote. It's not to say that we don't have an office. We do, but we only visit it on a rare occasion. We'll all come together and have strategy sessions. Primarily, we're 100% remote. I find that my team seems to be happier because they don't have transportation time and transportation stress. I really think that commute to work was putting maybe more pressure on the people that work for me than necessarily had to happen.
That's very true. And I think just working at home, getting out of bed and being like, okay, this is what I have to work on just increases productivity, because rather than having to commute to work, you can use the same time and actually work on a task regarding work. So I can see that definitely. So because you must sift through a lot of resumes and everything, according to you, what is something that makes a job applicant stand out? How can someone increase their chances of getting their dream job?
I think putting a very succinct, short message about why you want this job and it being authentic and it being directly at that company about that specific job. It helps me, certainly when I'm looking at applicants, it helps me to understand why did they think that this would be the job for them. This is really important, and I think oftentimes overlooked if you are changing industries or if you have been more senior and you want to take a step down, like take a step back a bit and become have a less senior role. If you do not explain that from the very beginning, you will be immediately disqualified for being overqualified.
Okay. So I usually thought that used to go in a Bennett, like it was a good positive thing that, okay, people would be like, okay, you're stepping down and you're working for something smaller, but usually you get disqualified. Why is that so though? As in like, wouldn't a company be privileged or lucky enough that they're getting someone so qualified for that specific position?
Right. It seems like that would be the perspective. But what really happens is they're worried about that role is not going to pay enough in compensation for what the person's used to making. They also are
Mm-hmm.
concerned that maybe this person is going to come in and make the current manager feel threatened. Maybe that manager is doing a great job and they
Okay.
don't want to disrupt anything that's working in the company. Um, and then, like, the
Okay.
third thing is a little harder to pinpoint, but if you can imagine that a person might come in and have too many new ideas and too much experience to be able to be molded into the way the company does things, and they don't want to have that resistance.
Okay, wow. Never thought of it that way. So thank you for showing me another side, which would especially be useful when I apply for jobs eventually, if I do decide to do that. So that's very interesting. And like you mentioned that you have to like you be precise, make sure that you're straight to the point regarding why you want to work in that company. Do you think this would reflect much more in the resume or in the cover letter?
So, a lot of people don't read cover letters unless they really like the resume.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So, also, a really kind of tragic statistic that our tech actually solves the problem I'm about to present to you. But you have to know, as a job seeker, most companies will still have this challenge. So, most companies admit that they only look at 20 to 25% of the resumes that come in. So, so what happens is there's this black hole feeling that applicants have. And so applicants will submit a job application and then they don't understand why no one ever got back to them. A lot of times it's because they never were even seen. The application was never seen. And there's many reasons why that happens. But I would say the number one thing is you've got to make sure that you're seen. And so sometimes you have to be a little bit more um, aggressive is not the right word, but strategic about how you get your information to the recruiters. And so if you can try to find out who's recruiting for that position, if you can get in touch with someone that already works at the company that can find out who's recruiting for that position and get their email, send it directly to them as opposed to applying just via the applicant tracking system or their online career site or even a job board. And I know that that seems possibly counterintuitive, but you kind of have to think about it. How are you going to get their attention when they might be seeing 500 resumes come in for the same job? They're going to hire one person. So, how do you make yourself, at the very least, you need to be in the top 10 people?
Yeah. That's so it's interesting because I think a lot of people usually I used to take it very personally as well because it used to cause me to self-doubt myself thinking, oh, am I not good enough? But then again, I think as in like you can't blame the hiring recruiters either just because there's so many applicants and they as in like they don't have enough time in the day because how many people would you get back to regarding whether they were not qualified, whether they even didn't go through the resumes? So I think definitely the key takeaway would definitely be not to take it personally and be strategic. If you really do want that specific role, take 3 to 4 steps further and actually reach out and build your network. So thank you for sharing that, Angela. That's really helpful.
Yeah. So think about the math of this, right? So each recruiter, it's not unheard of for them to have 15 to 20 jobs that they're recruiting for in any 30-day period.
Yeah,
And they
wow.
can have some of those jobs can have 1,000 applicants. Some may have 250 applicants. But you could easily say that they are looking at thousands of different applications and resumes in 30 days period. So how do you rise to the top?
Yeah. I feel bad for recruiters who have to do through so much,
They have
especially
a
because
very, very difficult job.
I can definitely see that. So thank you for sharing that. Well, everyone, this was Angela. You heard it. She definitely has experience, especially having founded 3 businesses. She currently helps a lot of people specifically look for jobs and is hiding the gap that exists in the market. So thank you so much, Angela, for sharing with us your wisdom and your experience. It was a pleasure having you.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I loved it.
Of course.